And so this stuff is all very dysfunctional as a nation. And so when I hear people talking about the problems of black culture and other cultures with their dysfunction, we've become kind of dysfunctional as a nation in spite of the fact that we are the very best and most powerful nation in the world. And how can the most powerful and influential nation in the world be dealing with these kinds of issues at the level and volume we have to confront them with? And so the mixed race person has taken a new role in society. Barack Obama was kind of used as a test to see what that would be like without having to go all the way black, so to speak. And I don't mean that disparagingly. I'm just being upfront. Because he's had to go through exactly what I have described here. And I don't see how the black man specifically has been blamed for all of it, but that's the way it has turned out. So no matter what white people do to oppress black people, when it's said and done, they're going to somehow kind of try to make it seem like the black man is responsible for things that white people are against and that other people that are minorities are against as well, to make it look like the black person is a bad guy. But no seed is possible without the man. It's just not possible. And so they attack what causes the mixture. And so those black men who have that capacity to be able to function on different dimensions and different levels and what have you, they face a brutal attack and assault sometime on their character in this country by people who are trying to prevent that from happening. See, black people are actually better at a lot of things than white people, but nobody really talks about that part because they want you to look like you have no value unless they're in control of you or unless they own you. And I'm not saying all white people act like that. But if you're tolerant of it, if you allow it to go on, if you work around it when you know it's taking place, you're still contributing to it. Whether you actually do it or believe it or not, you're contributing to it. And so until we confront these issues at their base level, what changes? You know, how do we know when we're really moving forward if we're still fighting in the same place for the same issues, over the same issues? Mixed race people have spent a lot of time on anger, confusion, and frustration in regard to race relations. Some of them have had a very difficult time because they're biracial people. They can see the benefit of the white part of their identity in terms of class equality and economics and what have you, and then they can also see the downside to the black side of their social identity. And in spite of the fact that some of them do well and some of them do very poorly, they all share something in common when you're talking about mixed race people. See, when it comes to race relations, the mixed race person is what racism was designed to stop, to prevent. And so when people are looking at what caused so much tragedy and so much divisiveness and so much polarization towards the black man has always been treated as the reason and the cause, the primary reason and cause for the production of mixed race people. A black man has always been treated like a threat to the white race, as if you had infiltrated and violated white people by having some interracial sex. And so to keep division, to try to own and contain what they wanted to be the purity of their superiority over the inferior race, they punished people on the basis of skin color and mixed race identity. And as the world globalized, because in the 1990s they made a national investment in globalization, and they had immigration in waves and at levels from all over the world come to pass like it never has, the mixed race population started to come from other systems and sources aside from just black and white. So it could have been an Asian and an Arabic person, or it could have been a Puerto Rican and it could have been a Puerto Rican and a French person or something. Like, this mixed race identity was something beyond just black and white, meaning that the minority population based upon non-white would continue to increase. And if white people wanted to be the dominant superior race, they felt that they had to keep as much mixing from occurring as possible. Now, mind you, most white people were not hung up on race relations to that degree based solely on the fact that somebody was black or white. Some white people were racist on the basis that they didn't want the problems of black culture and other cultures to become something that would become habitual in their own race. They could see the destruction, the poverty, the criminal nature, the violence that the statistics indicate comes from people of color, and they didn't want to feel as if that kind of behavior, that bad, poor behavior, would be a standard of acceptance in the white race. Because, to be perfectly honest with you, the church sees misconduct and criminal activity as sin. And they were saying that black people must be the devil, they must be sinful to be willing to engage in the kinds of activities that they engage in that destroy their communities, destroy their families, destroy their culture in the way that they do. Even considering the fact that there was a race contribution to what would cause some of that destruction, but they knew that there were things that black culture is going to do even if you give them all the accommodations and reasons not to be that way. They're going to go out and commit senseless acts of sex violation and rape and what have you in ways that overwhelm the system in ways that the same behaviors from the white race and other races does not indicate. And so when you see the staggering statistics of black misbehavior without white contribution, some people based racism on the fact that, hey, you guys are destroyers, you guys are sinful, you guys are threatening, you're dangerous, and you're violent. And we don't want anything to do with you. We don't want you contaminating our neighborhoods. We don't want you messing up our money. We don't want you turning everybody to addiction. And all of these things that were both true and also an excuse. Because to generalize about all black people based upon those stigmas and stereotypes, which in part are true, would be wrong. And so economically, they decided, all right, well, let's base value on who does the most for the society, on who's most educated, on who has the best family lineage, who has the best family history. And so they were willing to do things to disrupt the black family, to disrupt black culture, and to disrupt black economics for that end, so that they could say, hey, we're in control, we're dominant, we have more people in strength of population, we'll supply ourselves and sustain the white race, And if you are not accommodating us for that end, we're against you. And that's what it boiled down to. And so you get the mixed race person that came as a result of whatever the interaction was between whatever the mixed race couple is. And they end up in a situation where they'll never be white enough to be treated respectfully as a white person, and they'll never be black enough to be treated entirely respectful as a black person. They're stuck somewhere in between, and they're looking for a reason and a blame. And so what a lot of people did was divided classes, lower class, middle class, upper class, so that they could prevent their children from exposure to urban ghettos and things that deteriorate society. And so when you see a bunch of people who appear as wild people who are unrestrained with no moral compass or limitations, like people were acting in some parts of gangster hip-hop, they were saying that this stuff is what's destroying black culture, and if you don't stop it, they're going to find a way to destroy white culture too, because the white kids are gravitating towards that environment, and they're going to end up mixing everything else up too, and then white people will lose their self-identity. And so when they started coming up with this thing about white privilege, it wasn't so much about being privileged because they're white. It was about who was the ruling class based upon economics, and what do they have to do to have the overwhelming majority to the access and opportunity for money. Because if you keep people poor and if you keep people marginalized, they'll kill themselves. And so a mixed race person would come through and be stuck in the middle of this. And it can be an upscale mixed race person, or it can be a low class mid-race person, mixed race person, or it can be one of those people that are kind of neither and somewhere in between. And there will be this constant struggle about where they fit into society. And so you would find out that some mixed race people would be willing to be aggressive and dangerous towards black people to accommodate the benefit that they can gain from the white side of their race identity. When racism and segregation was instituted, the plan was to keep people of color divided from white people, because the only way that you could keep integration, unity, from occurring naturally because of human interaction is to create segregation. When they're looking at what can cause integration, it's the black man. Because if the black man and the white woman, or the white man and the black woman interact with one another, you create an extension of humanity in a manner that most closely resembles, based upon their theory, the black man. Because that child would come out as a person of color when they're procreated. Meaning that if the black or the black woman gets a hold of somebody who is non-black, it was thought that they were a threat to the white race